welcome back to another episode of the One Tree Hill Rewatch here on the Filmaholic channel. Today I'm talking about the Season 5 finale. We're on 5/18, What Comes After the Blues. This episode originally aired May 19th, 2008, and was written and directed by Mark Schwann, who always does the finales at this point. When it came out, it was my least favorite finale. I don't think it's my least favorite overall. I may be wrong. We'll wait and see. It's definitely my least favorite finale of the first 6 seasons. But I have to rewatch the finales of 7 and 8 to make that decision because I do. The writing is pretty solid in this episode. I just dislike that last scene with Dan, which we'll get to in a second. That just makes me want to throw up every time I watch it. But the episode the episode actually starts because this season we haven't been getting the opening credits. We just we have a black screen that says One Tree Hill. So it starts with Gavin DeGraw and Jamie, who they're at Red Bedroom Records, and Gavin DeGraw plays "I Don't Want to Be," the theme song. So that was nice, and then goes actually into the show because it's the opening, but it's not like a part of the show. Gavin DeGraw doesn't have like a talking or anything like that, any kind of moments in the episode. But the days go by, they keep going. The music plays, which really well, and we go into Lucas drinking. He's drinking on a trick. We see different shots. We actually see Chad's real dog at the time at the bar, which is really cool, and we see Peyton throwing balloons off of the top of Closer Bros, which Haley showed her about in the last episode when they threw one at Dan. So all that's happening, time's going by, and then eventually Nathan and Jamie show up and they wake Lucas up, and Jamie's like, "I think you drink too much," and Lucas is like, "I think you're right," which I love that scene because it mirrors the beginning of the season when Jamie said that to Nathan, and now, like how in season 1, Lucas and Nathan kind of switched places from the beginning to the end of the season, same thing happens here in season 5. Nathan was in a dark place at the beginning of the season, now Lucas is at the dark place at the end of the season, obviously for much different reasons. And Lucas also has a mohawk now, he's shaved his head. So we end up getting Lucas with a shaved head again at the end of the season and the beginning of season 6. Not the best look, I don't think, but it definitely his shaved head looks better in this season than it did in season 2. So we have that happen. Dan obviously keeps visiting the hospital, checking on this Reverend guy, considering throughout the episode whether or not he maybe wants to smother him with a pillow, try to get him to number 1, talking to him, trying to tell this Reverend about having hope, and maybe the opportunity with Jamie to get redemption there. And then ultimately at the end of the episode, he walks in and finds that the Reverend has passed away, and now Dan is, in fact, number 1. And then I'll go back to that at the end when I get here to the end of the episode. Brooke has Jamie. She's recovered from the surgery now, but she has a few more days left, she thought, and then finds out she has to take Angie back. So she's really upset about that she's alone again. She doesn't have Angie anymore. She's going to miss her. But also, I mean, she obviously wanted a baby to keep. So that's a part of the problem. Is like the silence is going to set in. Like I said, you still tease more with that doctor, like something was going to be there between them. It's not. And you tease also that there could be something there with Brooke and Lucas. But really, that's their friendship. And I like that they repaired their friendship at this point. Haley is trying to be mainly her thing in this episode is working with Leighton. She works with Lucas. She takes Lucas to the front of Closer Bros and gets that balloon dropped on top of Lucas's car to make Peyton feel better. And then she has a conversation with Lucas on top of Closer Bros about, hey, you need to make a decision. Is it Brooke? Is it Peyton? Is it Lindsay? Whatever, you need to make a decision and come out of this dark place. And she also takes off that mohawk in an earlier scene because Jamie's wanting to look just like Lucas. And then she also has a conversation with Peyton after that where she takes the predictions that they had made in high school that were still up there on top of Closer Bros, and she takes those and gives to Peyton, and how Lucas was so in love with her then, to try to make her feel better. And then after that, we see throughout the episode that Peyton is painting the river court with these lyrics and everything, and the comment in the middle of the river court as well. And Lucas sees that. He has another conversation with Haley, and she talks about how love is so great and the darkness doesn't have any answers and all of this. Lindsay, this episode again, comes and has a final scene with Lucas, and then calls him later and tells him, after he gives her the dedication, how she was afraid of his immensity of love, how immense his love was, and how she actually wasn't seeing anybody else, and pretty much that she does still miss Lucas. So we get that. Mouth helps the station out of a bind and ends up quitting his job because him and Millicent have decided to move to Omaha. He's taking that job. So you get that liberating moment for Mouth there. What else? I'm trying not to make sure I don't forget anything else in this episode. Before I get to the end here, Quentin's helping Nathan with the comeback too, and Nathan ends up doing that dunk. And, he says, we're going to do this. And it's like a really happy moment. And you know that they're setting that up for season 6, that comeback. And there's one really good scene I really like with Lucas and Peyton in this episode, where Lucas comes to the Red Bedroom Records to talk to Peyton. And he's like, I don't hate you. It hurt seeing you again and all that. And they have it's just a really nice conversation. And the music's really wonderful in that scene. And Peyton tells him, that she has a dream that they're back in that hotel room in LA, and that he proposes to her, and she says yes, and he says, well, that's just a dream, and she says, it's my dream. Just wonderful scene. And then before we get to that, we also have, before I get to like the final scene I'm going to talk about, we also have the scene where Dan comes out of the hospital. He's number 1 on the list now. He helps the old man across the street. And while he's talking to them and walking backwards, he's hit by a car. Chrysler 300 nails him. I cannot express how just pissed I was when this happened. Season 4 and season 5, when they came out on TV, I watched with my dad. So I remember watching that with my dad and it happening, and I was just so upset. I could barely sleep that night. I was like, because this is one of my favorite fictional characters right now, at this age, which was 2008, so I would have been 13 when this happened, and I was so upset, because I didn't know, whether or not he was going to be alive in season 6, or was that going to be the end to Dan Scott. And not only does he get hit by the car, but when he gets hit by the car, his beeper goes off. So you're left in suspense, because the way that's shot and the way that it made you think is that he got hit by the car, he's dead, and now the beeper goes off when he's dead. Obviously, it plays out different when we get to season 6. That car hit was intentional. We know who is behind the car, and we'll talk about that when we get to the next episode, season 6 premiere. Which there's still lots of questions in terms of that. That old couple really sucked. They didn't do anything for him. I know. You were on your last leg, whatever, but you couldn't call somebody to help this dude. Crazy. But yeah, I was really upset about that when it happened, and had so many questions of, was that an accident or was that intentional? Because at the time we didn't know. The forums and stuff didn't reveal when the finale came out about the next season what the answers were. And then the final thing at the end of the little cliffhanger of the other cliffhanger, the mids of this finale, the season finale, was Lucas at the airport, and he calls and somebody, and when he does, Brooke, Peyton, and Lindsay all answer the phone. So we don't know who it is. He says, I have 2 tickets to Las Vegas. Do you want to get married tonight? And that's the cliffhanger of who he called and asked. I think it was an obvious choice who he called, but I guess it's a cliffhanger for some people. They'd set up that Brooke and Lucas thing, which obviously was a friendship, but I don't think they set up it enough that you would actually think that it would be them. So it's really Peyton or Lindsay. Who did he call? Also, there was a little bit in the episode I forgot to mention, and that was that Mia calls Peyton and says that there's somebody who knows Ellie, and they get into that. And it's obviously Peyton's father, and they get into that in season 6, which they already teased in the last episode when Haley asked, if you got the chance to know your biological father, would you do it? So they were going to set that up for season 6, and that was a little thing they had in there. And another thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up season 5 and move on to season 6, was 5:15. I forgot to mention when I was talking about that episode. That was the second time that I went to Wilmington for a One Tree Hill trip. The first time was the beginning of season 5. Went with my dad, and we went on a weekend, so they weren't filming, but we did get to tour the studio, and I got to see a few of the filming locations. Like, I got to see the outside of Karen's Cafe, and I think Trick, the very first time that me and him went, along with touring inside the studios. The second time here, we went for an extended weekend, so we went Friday, Saturday, and left Sunday. So they were filming on that Friday that we got there, but they weren't filming on location. So I didn't get to watch them filming like I did other times, because they weren't filming out anywhere. They were filming at Screen Gym Studios. So when we went, I stood outside Screen Gym Studios for a while, and I actually got to see Sophia Bush. I didn't get to talk to her. I didn't get to meet anybody in the cast this time. This was March of 2008 when they were filming this episode. But I did see her walking from her trailer to one of the sound stages, and being my favorite show. And just seeing somebody walk to a sound stage was like, oh my God, that's incredible. But I don't have any pictures, I don't think, from these first 2 times that I went in season 5. The next time I went after that, I do have some pictures I'm going to look into, and that was with my dad again, and that was in season 6, and it was part of the little Q&A that they were doing for the Cucalouris Film Festival in Wilmington. It was a Q&A. It was with the guy who plays Carl from Crab Shack. He was actually the moderator. I think he had something to do with the festival, as well as UNCW maybe, but he was the commentator, and Paul Johansson was there, and Chad Michael Murray was there, and James Lafferty was supposed to be there, but he couldn't make it at the last minute. And Greg Prange, the director. They were all there at this commentary that I went to with my dad at the beginning of season 6, and I'll talk about that when we get there. Well, I say the beginning of season 6, but I think they were filming, I want to say, towards episode 9 of season 6. They were a little bit ahead, but when we went for this, I think it was September when we went. And I'll talk about that. But that was a really great experience, and that was when I met one of the actors for the first time, and that was Paul Johansson, which was my favorite character and the main person I wanted to meet, so that was awesome. But I'll discuss that more. Right now, we are done with season 5, which I think overall is a really solid season. It's not my favorite season, or one of my favorite seasons, but it's not at the bottom either. It's probably somewhere in the middle when I do a ranking of all the seasons. But it was a good continuation, but also a revamp of the series, I think. And the writing was solid all around. But now we're on to season 6. From what I remember, it's one of my favorite seasons, so I'm excited to jump back into season 6 and see how Sarah reacts to it as well. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, guys, and stay with me.